Good morning and welcome to the show. I am your host, Super Mania, aka Catherine McCord, and I am very honored to have our guest Dawn with us today. She is going to be talking to us about TBIs. Now, if you don't know anything about this show, we are here to talk about neurodiversity and mental health. And we kind of run the gamut. We do embrace all different types of neurodiversity. If you have any questions about neurodiversity, please, or our topic today, please feel free to drop a comment and we will respond to you live. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Miss Dawn. How are you today?
Hey, Catherine. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. And I just realized my computer is still up. There we go. Just shut that guy. So I was just on your show, which was super fun.
You
So
were.
first, tell us a little bit about you and your show before we get going.
Well, let me tell you that I live in Asheville, North Carolina. I've been here, 17 years, retired from the Air Force. Love it here. My my radio show, which I also do a video with it, is called The Empowered Whistleblower. And it's all around workplace issues. And sometimes people think issues are bad, but sometimes issues are great. We're talking about leadership
Great.
and such. So that's a little bit about me. I do consultant training. I've been in HR, worked for myself for over 31 years. And I write
Nice long
books. I
time.
write books. I do a little bit of everything.
I'm proud of myself over here for coming up on God dang it, was it 8 years? And you're over there with with 30 something years.
I know, but I might be older than you too.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But it is a fun journey though, right? Working for yourself. It's a whole other adventure. Not for everybody, but it
Not
is
for
a whole lot of
everybody,
fun.
not for the weak or the lazy people. Not for
Or
sure.
even just people who want their sanity. Like if you
Yeah,
want
no,
to be a
just
sane
saying.
human, don't work for yourself. That's not the thing. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today because I talk about neurodiversity a lot. And honestly, I'm even kind of guilty of this, typically focusing on the neurodiversity with which you're born or that's inherent or kind of more organic. Maybe you developed it, but kind of over a period of time. But there are neurodiversities that just enter your life like a flash. One of them, the more common one, I would think, would be TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. So,
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit, first of all, about just what that is, if you can.
Yes, I didn't know much about traumatic brain injuries. As I said, I was in the Air Force 20 years, and you heard about people getting TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, and I associated it to begin with injuries in the war. But I found out really quickly that's not the case. In my case, I was in a car accident where I was rear-ended about 3 years ago, and then I ended up getting a traumatic brain injury, and it affected me mentally, physically.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, it does.
amazing
Yeah, and it's
what it
and
does
so
to you.
um what are some of the symptoms that you've experienced with your TBI, if you don't mind sharing?
No, I'm an open book, Catherine. Well, the first thing was that I could not concentrate. I was writing my workbook. I'd put out a workbook around, standing up to workplace bullying and discrimination. And so it took me 2 years to put it together. And I warned my editor that I had been in an accident. And she was so great. And I not only had been in an accident, that I couldn't focus. And I started to say words, and instead of saying rock, I would say house, if I was saying in a sentence. So I had a hard time putting words together. I know that my friends had to finish my sentences, and that
Right.
was embarrassing. I have to say, they did it. Even when I got better, they kept doing it. I'm like, stop, I'm getting a
Like,
little
no,
bit
I got it
better.
now. I got it. I can say stuff good.
Yeah. And for almost 6 months, I sat in my house with migraine headaches that were so severe that I had to have the place dark. I was wearing sunglasses in a dark house, no sound, no TV. Or if I watched TV, it was with sunglasses and no sound. And that's just some of the symptoms. And
Right.
it got me depressed after a while. When it went on, it lingered on. I went through some deep depression, and I had to get help for that.
That's something I love that you did that tie-in because yes, there is a physical element, but there's also a mental and emotional element, right? I mean, there's
Absolutely.
the exhaustion factor, there's the fear factor, there's the anger,
Yes.
perhaps
Yes.
sadness, loss, all of that, and it's a lot. I have not had a TBI, but both my husband and my sister in very different ways
Yeah.
had them and had very different symptoms, except for the memory issue. They both can't remember anything for squat, but it's
I'm laughing along because I'm not laughing at them,
you
but
no no I
I
know,
get it.
yeah, it's kind of funny, and we you have to kind of you kind of have to make light sometimes because it could be too frustrating, you know. And I've talked on here about how I, make jokes and all that about some of my neurodiversity. And
Yeah.
I do want to give space for that for people that want to do that, because I think that sometimes it's healthy to laugh, as long as it's with someone, not at them. So the other thing too that I noticed is the caregiver emotional states that can kind of cycle through, because it's that fear. So you talked about your friends talking over you or completing your sentences, and for a while sometimes it's actually helpful, like my sister would just get stuck, like, okay,
I
ain't
did
nothing's
too.
coming out, help me here, like do something about this. But then after a while I could tell that it hurt her and it hurt her feelings. So
Yeah.
you really have to be mindful. You have to be, and even sometimes when they do need the help, maybe they don't want it in that particular moment. Maybe they don't want to be reminded that they need the help. So just give it a second, let the brain work through it as best it
Yeah.
can. And it can be a lot. So I mean, did you have anyone
Yeah.
experiencing that? Was there kind of that back and forth of, yes, I need your help, no, then go away, now I got it?
I I'm really proud, maybe, and I have so much pride that, and I'm very independent, and I would say that's probably from the Air Force, to be quite
Right.
frank. But I was grateful my friends finished my sentence. But I'm glad that you mentioned about feelings, because it frustrated me very much that people had to jump in and speak for me, and sometimes they couldn't get it. They didn't get it right. And, I
Right.
want to bring up something that you had talked about on my show when we were talking about neurodiversity, is to meet that person where they're at.
Right.
That is so profound, Catherine.
It's something that I think we forget, that you might need to just be wherever space they're in. They don't need to come to you. You can go to them too. And it's a balance. And if someone's going through something like a traumatic brain injury where everything's changing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
very quickly you're just suddenly thrust into this whole new space and this whole new reality. And and so I think that there needs to be a lot of grace given for that, and just patience, but then also help, maybe set up with some tools,
Mm-hmm.
like for a while my sister couldn't really speak very much at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there were other ways that we, worked with her for her to communicate to us. So we weren't just doing things and assuming this is what she needed or wanted, this is that she would actually communicate. She's got a very animated face and stuff. So that was a
Oh,
lot of it, is that she would give us very, particular faces and all of that. And in
yeah.
fact, I do want to kind of hit on that. So when a TBI happens, there could be different ways to communicate all of a sudden, right? So they could be very different. So one of the things with her was we were in the hospital, like, well, if she doesn't wake up, we can't let her go home. Oh, why is she not waking
Oh,
up? Why is she not waking up? And I looked at them, I said, she's awake. They said, no, she's not. Look at her. And I said, yes, she is. Look at her face. And when they really backed up and looked at her, she was going, like, squinching up her face, like, I don't want to wake up. Leave me alone. Like, just
oh
go away.
boy.
And so
Yeah.
they said, okay, well, she knows what's going on.
Yeah.
She's got it, so she can go. She could go ahead and go home. She's capable. She just didn't want to do it. So was there anything like that for you, where you found a different way to communicate, or you wanted to do something, so you just stuck your stuck your foot in the ground and said, not changing?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, probably because, 20 years in the Air Force, it's definitely defined me. I wanted to isolate myself. I don't have immediate family upon me, and my friends wanted to jump in and do everything for me. And I'm like, okay, I'm 58. Well, I'm 58 years old now, but at the time, it was about 3 years ago. Everybody wanted to jump in and do stuff for me. And, I'm like, I wanted, I thought it wouldn't last as long as it did, Catherine. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm
Right.
fine. I'm fine. And I mean, I'm like walking in the dark, trying to go find food in the refrigerator, and just even going to the grocery store and being with the noise and the overload, the sensation drove me
Right.
insane. It just, I'd come home in sheer panic.
Yeah.
So yeah, my communication definitely changed because, I started to say stuff and I couldn't get it all out a lot of the times. And it was just so awful. And let me add
Right.
in, my mom had cancer right almost at the time this
Wow.
happened. I was
That's a lot.
devastated because, I managed to get down to North Florida. I flew down there. I knew I couldn't drive. And had somebody pick me up, and I can just tell you frankly, I could not give 100% of myself. I think maybe I gave 60% of myself. I would forget things. I would do, like electronic kettle where you boil water. It's electronic.
Yes.
I remember I got so confused that I turned the stove on, put the electronic kettle, just the kettle, on the stove, turned it on, and it had rubber underneath. I smoked the entire house out.
Oh
Oh
no.
my God. That's just one of many things. I was there for my mom, and she was in such a fog that she couldn't understand my behavior.
Right. It was probably very confusing for her too.
It
Yeah.
was. Yeah, she was in quite a fog.
It can be too. So to kind of hit on that, so even the behaviors can change. So people can go through periods of aggression after a TBI. That can actually become permanent and require treatment. But they can go through periods of aggression, depression, erratic behavior, and just weird things like that. I remember, I remember one time my sister, bless her sweet little heart, she's such a caregiver. She's just an
Oh,
amazing, loving, phenomenal human being. And she went and I said I wanted some grapes, and she goes, "I'll get them for you." And she was so excited. She goes in there, and she came back in with apples. And then she'd sliced up an
I
apple,
know
and I
what
was
you're
like,
talking about. Yeah.
"Oh well," and I just ate it. I was like, "I'm not
Right.
even."
You
I
didn't
was
want to
like,
embarrass her or make her
yeah,
feel
I was like,
bad.
whatever. But it was so cute. But it was little things like that. So she knew, she got the basics right. The brain just kind of forgot part of the message, and she's fine now. I mean,
Oh,
well,
thank
there's
goodness.
there's a few little residual things every once in a while, but she's good. She's, graduated with a master's in counseling and psychology. She works with children, does pet therapy. So it's not all doom and gloom, folks. You can still do amazing things. And Dawn over here is author and consultants and all of that. So we're not saying this is like doom and gloom,
Yeah.
but it did. So how do you get to that point? So you're in this frustrated,
Oh,
like,
wow.
like the brain's not doing what I need it to do. How do you get to the
I
functionality?
if I'd done nothing, it probably would have taken a long time to get better. And I sincerely don't think I would have gotten to the level where I'm at. I had over 125 treatments. Catherine, my
Wow.
eyes couldn't focus. I would see things, and my eyes, were going like this, at times. Not
Yeah, the
always.
shaking.
It was hard. So when I was talking about writing the book, I'm looking at the book and it's like almost a blur. Not all the time. Yeah, it can really alter you. I had all kinds of therapy. I had to see a neurosurgeon, not for surgery though,
Right.
just for guidance,
Consult.
advice. And then he gave all kind of treatment options, and I jumped on it immediately. And thank goodness I did. As you mentioned about your sister, I also too have residual. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
sit there and I'll say something, and if I don't concentrate on what I'm saying, I'll say the wrong word. Like, let's go to
Right.
the house. I'll say, let's go to the stone. And everybody's like, what? and I'm like, oh, and it's so embarrassing because, I mean, I'm a relatively smart person, and they're like, what is wrong with that girl? And that's the truth. Even to this day, I caught myself doing it at my mom's house, and we had this talk, it was just last week, and she said, ever since you had the brain injury, she said, you're more forgetful and you're more impatient.
Right.
Oh, that really hurt my feelings. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm like, Mama, I said, I've always been straightforward and a go-getter, and we have different personalities. What I see as impatient is just taking charge and getting things done. And she's very laid back.
but there can be some of that too, right? Just the oh, well, I'm just gonna do more of this, and it can kind of exacerbate, I've noticed, characteristics that are already there. My husband, by the way, you were talking about how your brain just doesn't quite kick into gear. So there's a show, What We Do in the Shadows, that my husband and I watch. It's hysterical. It's a mockumentary about a house of vampires. It's very, very funny. And there's one episode they over hypnotize their neighbor, and they give him what they call the brain scramblies. And my husband goes, "That's me." Get the brain scramblies.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just, there we go with the humor. But it's just, but it is hard, and that ongoing difference. And so, and I will say, as a partner, it can be hard to see.
I imagine it is for people that love that person or care about them, whether it's family or friends. I mean, people were really worried about me because, I was taking care of myself, and they're like, is this the end of her career? Can she make it? Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the friends and the family support, but it was also very, very, very embarrassing to me. And I shouldn't have, looking back, I shouldn't have been embarrassed. I mean, that was my choice, choosing embarrassment. But, as I said, I've always been proud and independent and strong, very resilient. And now I can't even put a sentence together. I can't even go out in the public around a whole lot of people. I just would panic. Break out in sweat, and I couldn't. Sometimes I'd go to the grocery store, Catherine, and I had this list of 20 things, and I could only get 2 things. I could not get out of the grocery store fast enough. And then I started ordering things online, when I could. It would take time. Everything would take longer than usual to try to figure out things.
It's interesting. Also how the brain starts to your point, to start to adjust, though, right? So, you went from, not getting the right words out to now you can go to the grocery store or order online or whatever you need to do. So even though some of that's still there, you found ways to work around it and to work with it as well. Sometimes you can't get around it, but you can work with it. So I'm curious because, again, this is not something I've experienced, but it's certainly something that I've been around. Do you think, or for you, was it helpful to, when you were going through these therapies and all that, to have these tools presented to you, or did it work better when you found something on your own? So was it, the power were the suggestion options better, or was it more things that you discovered on your own that were more helpful?
I'd say a little of, discovered on my own, but my gosh, the treatments I had, helped me with cognitive issues. And it took a while. It didn't happen overnight. And there was times when I was going every day, to a functional neurologist to help me, to focus with, the physical part and stuff. And, I discovered I had to write a list. I had to. Otherwise, I would forget it, and I'm talking about very important things, not just routine things, but I'd even have to write down silly things. I say silly, little things that weren't important because I would forget it. So I had to learn to adjust and just live with the fact that, I can't just put it in my head, oh, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do X, Y, Z and this and that. No, I had to write down, tomorrow you're going to do this, and that, and clear it off. And I had to put that list, where right by the coffee machine, because I love my coffee. That's
You're not
one
going to
thing I
miss the
never
coffee
forgot.
machine.
I never forgot my coffee. That kind
That
of
never
thing would
happened. That was
make
the
me in
thing that
trouble.
stuck out.
So I would tape the list, by the coffee, and I'd forget I even taped it there. And I'm like, oh yeah. Today I got to do, all these things.
But
Yeah,
you know
I
what? That's
definitely.
interesting. The primitive brain kind of took over, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the thing that I need, or this is the thing that is, and so it took over and it kind of kicked in.
Yeah.
My husband always said his OCD is what makes it not noticeable
Oh,
with him, because
wow.
he's always been very
Yeah.
obsessive compulsive. And so he uses that to to kind
That's
of counter everything. And it's interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
highly organized, highly, just always been that way. So it kind of just worked out, in a way. It was just kind of a natural tool. But that's interesting about kind of the primitive brain. Like, okay, I know I need my coffee, so I can leave everything with the coffee, and it'll happen. It'll be found.
Yeah, I never forgot the coffee. And so I'd see the list. I'm like, thank God for the list. If I didn't write a list, I would have been in deep, deep trouble. Good old behavioral study.
It is really amazing,
Yeah.
how those things kind of stick with us, through everything. So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about on the work side. So that's kind of like the day-to-day function. So, make a list, work through it, have empathy on both sides, for the caregivers, for the person going through it. Oh, and by the way, caregivers, and I've been a caregiver multiple times for multiple different kinds of
Yeah.
situations, take a break. Take breaks. Do not feel obligated to be there 24/7. I know that that's natural. No,
Yeah.
take breaks, step away, let your feelings out. Just take that time for yourself. And the same thing, I think, for the person going through it. Sometimes you guys need a break from us. It's like, get away from me. Like,
I know, because I knew I wasn't going to get all my sentences out correctly. I was going to
right.
say crazy things, or forget or whatever. And I'm like, I just need to be alone. And, I guess people
Yeah.
operate differently. Some people want, bring in the friends to support this and that. And I'm like, I just want to be alone. I want solitude.
Yeah. I think you need, and there again, difference.
It took a
Yeah.
long time to, to make progress.
Right. And it can be a lot. Sometimes you need that space for that journey. Like, just let me just deal with this. I got this.
Yeah.
So on the work front, so let's talk about that. So
Okay.
we kind of talked about the personal element. So on the work front, when did you start to see improvement? Where are you now?
Oh, wow. For almost, oh boy, almost a whole year, I had so many issues, from the traumatic brain injury, that I kind of had to set work down. I mean, I work
Right.
for myself, and thank goodness, I have a Air Force retirement pension. Thank goodness. I mean, that was my
Right.
lifesaver, right? So I had to basically take care of me, and that was hard. I'm used to taking care of other people, and so a lot of work did not get accomplished. I mean, where am I at now? I still, like I said, I have to still work on my brain, as far as I
Right.
have to concentrate about what I'm going to say. Because, how we talk and we don't even think about what we're going to say. And it usually comes out right. But no, there are so many times I'll be saying the craziest things. And these are people that usually know I have a traumatic brain injury, and they're like, oh boy, Dawn.
Yeah. Oh, this is fun.
So, so I reached out to, medical staff, and now I'm taking supplements to help, and I'm not trying to sell supplements to anybody.
Right.
We have to all choose what works for us and make, wise decisions. But these supplements are for clarity, for concentration, to improve your brain health, because there are medicines out there and supplements, I believe, that, definitely are helping me.
Good. Well, and that's important. And I like that you've talked about multiple options. So you did the therapies, you've got the supplements. There's all these. So it's a holistic plan, right? We talk about that a lot on this show.
Yeah.
Is addressing all the different elements because we're holistic beings. So just touching on this one thing isn't going to quite cut it. But with the TBIs and some of this, I just realized that some of what you're saying was kind of resonating because after a seizure my brain just goes I will say
Yeah.
things and people will look at me and be like, mm-mm, that wasn't a thing. I don't know what you were trying to say, but that wasn't it. And so it's that. Now it's a temporary thing, but
Yeah.
those days I have to either not work at all or work very, very slowly, very, very slowly. But the next day, I
Yes.
can make up for it. I will go lightning speed through everything.
I get that too. I have days, that were like that too, where I couldn't put two and two together, couldn't remember anything. I had migraines, oh, and I had a lot of treatments. Like I said, I had over 125 treatments. So I would go to the functional neurologist and I'd have to stare at a red dot that was going all over the
Oh,
screen.
yeah.
And I'm like, I am sick of red dots. I'm sick of
Now you know how cats
I'm
feel.
sick of all
You
the
know?
treatments. I'm tired of, it's like the medical staff were the centers and the hospitals were my second home. I mean, I knew and I appreciated deep down, but I was getting tired of it. I mean,
Yeah,
125 treatments is a lot,
it's a
you
lot.
know?
And
Oh,
that's perseverance to get through that. That's what that is. It's a
yeah, I did not
lot
want
of
to be
perseverance.
I didn't want to stay where I was at, just the brain fog, not remembering, not being able to say sentences. My eyes couldn't focus. I didn't want to be like that.
No, but now you're doing some pretty remarkable things. I'm not going to go into all the
Oh,
things, but
yeah.
you do the show, you've taught yourself a whole new skill set,
Yeah, I had to
in the
write a
midst
lot of
of all this.
notes. I have
Yeah,
to put a lot of notes where I glance at so I don't forget to say certain things. And I've always
right,
been that way. It's weird. Maybe it's not weird, but where I just put a keyword and then I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that means.
right,
Oh yeah, remember to say, the radio station handle, because
right,
we have to say it right because the FCC, and so I had to do that because I didn't want to get us in trouble. The radio
right.
station. And even though everybody knew I had traumatic brain injury, I was able to hide it a lot because I would really concentrate on what I was saying.
Right. Yeah. And so you just found ways to work with it and just kind of
Yes.
make it work. So you learned a whole new skill, too, a couple actually, 'cause you got the show too. So you got a whole couple of skills that you've built up. It's just you have to learn differently now. And I think that's important to hit on because I think that it can be very overwhelming for people when they get a TBI, whether it's military personnel, whether it's somebody in a car wreck, somebody who goes off the back of a horse, somebody that, whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's gets hit one too many times with a hockey puck at the head.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's a thing. Um, and people, I think that there's a lot of fear, a lot of frustration, but it's good news to know that you can, even if there are permanent effects, which many times there are, that you can learn
Yeah.
to work with them and still be happy and successful. Like my sister over there with her dog Maslow doing pet therapy and helping children and being a little
Oh,
local celebrity. They get invited to all kinds of things. They're so
oh
cute together.
yeah.
Um,
Oh.
and oh, by the way, anybody, because I've been asked about this before the show, anybody that wants to find them, they're on Instagram and it's Maslow therapy dog is their thing. So you can find Maz and Michaela. But there is an upside, right? And you've got your show and you're doing new things. So,
Yeah.
what would kind of, as we wrap up, what would your advice be to somebody who's going through this? What would you say to them to encourage them?
You know, if you need treatment and it's offered, try to get all the treatment that you can because it can help. I say it did help me a lot. And I want to reiterate about the radio show. I didn't do the radio show until about almost a year after the
Right.
TBI, but it wasn't immediately. I've been doing the radio show, but also be easy on yourself, because I was frustrated. I got into deep depression. I wanted to sleep all the time. If you need mental health care, please, please get the help that you need. And it could be
Yes.
holistically. For me, I had to get on antidepressant medicine. It sucked, but it helped, And I'm
Right.
not saying everybody needs to get on antidepressant medicine. They have to decide what's best for them. I tried to do
Yes.
the holistic for so long, and it was just too much, Catherine. So be gentle on yourself, be patient on yourself. Don't be as proud as I am. If you need help, ask for it. Really, ask for support, because there's so many good people out there that do want to help you.
Yes, and there are wonderful groups online, by the way. Facebook
Yeah.
has some good ones. There's some good ones that you can just Google and find. And sometimes just talking to other people going through it will make you be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, this is normal. Like I'm okay, and this person is doing
Yeah.
okay." And sometimes you need to get out the bad things. That I do know. Sometimes you need to get out the anger.
Yeah.
Not on a person, please. Find
Right.
out a non-victimist victim way to do it. But but it is important to take care of. And when I say holistic, but I don't mean avoid medication. When I say holistic, I'm talking about the whole being. Make
Yeah.
sure the mental wellness, the physical wellness, all of that is taken care of. And with that, I want to thank you so very, very much, Dawn, for coming on and sharing your story. It's been a true pleasure. Tell everybody how they can find you.
Oh, yes. They can find me by going to Dawn Westmoreland. And I tell people it's like going west for more land. That's easy to spell, .org. And, my primary niche has been safe and healthy workplaces.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. And if you want to find me, of course, if I'm on LinkedIn, I have there's supermaniashow.com. And if you want to get to know Dawn better, you can also go to her LinkedIn page and check out and then also her show page, because very soon there'll be an episode with me on it. You can hear what else we talked about with
Yes.
neurodiversity. So thank you very, very much again for joining me, Dawn. Thank you everyone for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.